Shane Jones.
Mr. Speaker. Kiwis, I am holding Maui #1 crude oil, 1969, because this budget is the real oil. $200 million dedicated to accelerate, de-risk, enable your nation, our country fellow MPs to take a cornerstone in recovering a foundation industry destroyed by the last regime. With your blessings, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take the lid off and invite the Green Party to sniff it. I daren't do the same thing to my whanaungas in the Māori Party. They'll claim ownership of it. The Green Party is likely to say, Mr. Speaker, we can match it with wind, but we don't want your mung bean pronoun version of wind. We are here to turn around the fortunes of our country, our nation, and that depends on affordable energy and secure energy. A problem that has been inherited after the worst decision made in the history of our nation, delivered by Jacinda, supported by Megan, and sadly acquiesced by the good Matua. But to remind me of my ills, I'm wearing a light blue suit today. And to remind Labor what they could have had, I've got a red tie. I would say to Labor, I need to give you speed dial relationship advice. And my advice to Mr. Hipkins, you're gonna kiss a lot of frogs before you find the prince. I doubt, Mr. Speaker, that they will be able to find anyone worthy of a partner, because his speech today was an obituary. It was an epitaph. The ideas that they formerly associated with, the proud men and women who were on the farm, digging the coal, digging the gold, doing the mahi, they have been overwhelmed by marginal, frivolous, irrelevant beliefs. Who will they find to uphold their government? The Māori Party? Send a search party. The Green Party? Never. That budget was a toxic diet of destructiveness for New Zealanders. There's nothing wrong with aspiring to become wealthy. The Green Party stood against that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with teaching our children to stand up and by the sweat of thy brow, look after yourselves. And of all the people they purport to represent in Strugglers Gully, don't lecture us about school lunches. Wake up early and make your kids a lunch yourself. When they're not at school, who's feeding them? And if they're not being fed, you don't deserve the munificence of the state. Our social welfare minister has laid down the law. If you're 17, 18, 19, 20, and you're not willing to stand up and join the ranks of your fellow New Zealanders, prepare to own your own life, prepare to find a solution to your own problems. We are no longer going to pay you to stay on the couch or be on meth. That's the appetite that Kiwis have, Mr. Speaker, because we've inherited not only a set of fiscal problems, we have a cultural problem in our country where far too many Kiwis believe it is the state's obligation and their right to demand it that we meet the costs of their lifestyles. No, it is not. If you do not change in Kaikahu your lifestyle, the cops are coming to get you. If they take you to court, we'll build another prison for you. I'm sick to death as a leading Māori identity in this Parliament, not seeing a quality of leadership from either iwi hapu to not only eradicate the gangs, but to get the old type of leadership that defined the Māori community. Wake up early, look after your children, look after yourselves, a balance of faith, and no more huckers of victimhood. Don't tell this House that the reason the haka exists here is because of victim ideology or colonisation. There are lots of people of my descent in this House who are proud to own the traditions and obligations and duties of being a parliamentarian, which is why we are giving our speeches on the budget today. Let's think about security. We need a deeper ethic of service, obligation and duty, and let's give our Minister of Defence a hearty round of applause. After many years of deprecating, marginalising the tradition of service, the role of the military, she has brought that back to a position of elevated status. We need to celebrate these institutions which this budget builds on. But security, sir, is not only about men and women in uniform. It's about having fiscal resilience. And fiscal resilience does require us to continually manage debt in such a way it expands the private sector whilst confining the public sector as to what it should be doing. There will be more cuts. And then the question should be asked, what exactly should the state be doing? And if we cannot generate the surplus, if we cannot continually deliver budgetary surplus, then we have to address what should the state be doing. Because the state, over the last 3 to 5 years, expanded into various spheres of our economic life where it no longer belongs. That takes us, Mr. Speaker, to the regulatory reform. That's why we are repealing the excesses of the Resource Management Act. That's why we will be fixing up the Wildlife Act. And that's why my leader, Winston Peters, in negotiating with the National Party, brought forward the fast-track legislation. It is pitiful. I come from the Taitokerau, Northland. 3 projects. Number 1, a potential marina in a very benighted area of the Bay of Islands where pee has gone mad amongst local people. Number 2, taking sand out of a virtual Sahara desert, i.e. the coast of Northland on the east coast. Number 3, the development of a dry dock facility. And what do I hear from the north? And these are the voices that this government cannot tolerate. Stopping, halting, confusing, undermining. If we do not have projects that are permitted and accelerated, which generate jobs, increase our productivity, where will our wealth come from? The wealth, Mr. Hipkins, does not come from doing each other's dirty washing. The wealth comes from using our natural resources, mining our natural resources, utilising our fisheries resource, boosting the footprint of our farming, and stop intimidating Kiwis who are willing to invest. And this is a pro-investment budget through our depreciation. Stop scaremongering that New Zealand can no longer grow its food generative capacity, its food productive capacity because of climate change. We were given in the Paris Accord, as a food producing nation, the option of not including food-related emissions. That's what the law says at the UN. And stand by when we move forward to the next election associated with the party that we belong to. You'll hear much more about that. Mr. Speaker, I want to focus on a number of the other initiatives that really are important to us as Kiwis. At the pith of this budget is a challenge and a question for Kiwis. If we cannot afford the current size of the state, then are we willing to make the hard trade-offs? Mining gas and oil is a hard trade-off. Do you want the lights on? And don't seek to convince Kiwis you're going to keep the lights on by more sunlight and more wind. We, whether we like it or not, because of the wretched decision of destroying the gas industry 4 or 5 years ago, are the only Western nation that I know of that are transitioning to coal. That's right. That's right. The damaging outcome of decisions without contemplating their consequences. That is why the $200 million, sir, that I've announced today is needed to de-risk, and it's sad that I should say this because we're not Venezuela, we're New Zealanders, proud of our heritage, capable of bringing a number 8 wire mentality to solve our problems. But too many foreign direct investors no longer have confidence in our country. Why? Because they look back how one decision could destroy a whole industry. But when they see the Crown, when they see the government as a fellow shareholder, a fellow investor with a cornerstone right, they know it's going to be a very bad government and permanently scarred government, or indeed a government that disappears forever, that willingly destroys that investment. But it's extraordinary that you and I, fellow MPs, are reduced to encouraging people to come to New Zealand because of their fear of our worthiness, of our integrity, our reliability. But we should not overlook the fact so much of the resources of the country, sir, were developed in a co-investment model. Now, we ought always to be very, very vigilant that we do not use in a reckless, profligate fashion our checkbook. But the story of our nation has been co-investment, and we, through this decision, are going to make sure, number 1, the lights stay on. Number 2, energy is affordable. Number 3, energy is secure. And if it comes to pass that fossil fuels are required in the short to medium, even the long term, that is the price that we have to pay to ensure we do not believe falsely in how quickly alternative technologies can develop in order for us to make the journey in terms of carbon emissions, because we cannot destroy our economy through that journey. That is why, sir, I'm intensely proud to belabor the fact in respect of this $200 million. And I know it will be attacked. But you may not know, next Thursday, the Green Party travellers are going to have a protest outside the ANZ Bank. They have decided that banks should no longer fund coal, minerals and gas. These unelected fellow travellers of the Green Party, possessed of some false creed, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be there the day before. And I will be there with my megaphone. Because the banks of New Zealand need to know you don't have the moral authority to debank farming. You don't have the moral authority to destroy regional New Zealand. And the Green Party and their fellow travellers, under no circumstances whatsoever, should we encourage that destructiveness because of the conceit and the false superiority that they bring to these debates. Now, let me talk about a topic near and dear to my leader, who, by the way, said to me, have you finished your discussions with Nicola Willis? At about 1:15. I have. Oh, very good. You're giving the speech. Well, you like to challenge yourself and give speeches without notes, Shane. Let's see how good you really are. The one thing he said, please talk about rail. Now, I know it attracts adverse and toxic reactions to certain lost souls. But, folks, rail will continue to occupy a place of position. But we need to put the executive of KiwiRail on notice. If the Crown, on behalf of the taxpayers, is continually going to throw dough, we must see results. And if we're not seeing results, Don't just blame the workers. We're putting a new board in place, and that board will have the asset on them to ensure that that executive leadership team delivers. If not, consequences will most certainly flow. Let me now talk, Mr. Speaker, about some of the environmental changes that are adverted to in our budget, not the least of which is the money that's put aside to meet the costs of the new RMA system. The new RMA system, folks, is based on property rights. It's based on expanding the liberty of owners, of asset owners, to enjoy the fruits not only of their labour, but the fruits of holding certain rights of ownership. Not having too many nosy parkers, not having too many people who are not directly affected by decisions hampering the ability of local communities, local businesses to thrive. That is going to take some millions of dollars to introduce. But in the period of time that final product is introduced, we're making other changes. We are going to ensure that aquaculture, mining, quarrying, water utilisation is not held captive, is not squandered as people march off to the court, never to get a result within a decent period of time. Those are the practical challenges and those are the practical responses that this budget is funding. The other thing that needs to be borne in mind, sir, through this budget is that when we do find opportunities, let's invite foreign direct investment to come into our country. Let's ensure that the test, Mr. Speaker, is one that Kiwis, our quality of life, our values are uppermost in the minds of the officials as those decisions are made. And stop blaming foreign direct investment in the mining sector for things that may have gone wrong, and stop stigmatising such a sector when every day my opponents come using technology totally reliant on mining. A level of hypocrisy that we see in an ideological sense that beggars belief. So foreign direct investment is a key pillar, an important input to the future of our nation, providing it's on the basis that it enriches, enhances and expands the independence and productivity of Kiwis. The whole concept, Mr. Speaker, of investment has been supported through our depreciation announcements today. If you want to expedite productivity, if you want to find solutions of a scientific, technological nature for climate change challenges, depreciation is a tremendous input. We know we've virtually reached peak tree position. Granted, planting trees is a key contribution to our climate change journey, but my colleagues on this side of the House realise that land must also produce food. That's right. So to the vegetable growers, please rest assured the ministers on this side of the House are going to ensure that you're not taxed, you're not regulated out of existence. We want more food produced in our own country, including an expansion of dairy. Rely on science and technology and cleverer utilisation of water resources. Of course, Mr. Speaker, I've had a rather charmed position in this budget because my leader negotiated the $1.2 billion at the point of the government's consummation. But money that's allocated via the RIF fund will continue to support the underlying principles of our budget and to remind Kiwis, what are they? Growth, common sense outcomes, security, and a sense of responsibility that you are both the author and you are the inheritor, but most importantly, you are responsible for what happens in your life. That is why I've got no tolerance for the haka of victimhood. That is why my leader and I see a very bright future when politicians stand up and reclaim from the woke tribe the ability to use our own oil, our own gas, keep the lights on, and this genuinely, as is the budget, the real oil.